Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Marcelo here, and welcome to the Future Pastor Podcast. It's great to have you guys back. Today's episode number 3, and I'm talking to a good friend of mine that I made at Gordon-Conwell Theological Seminary. His name is Alden, and Alden is a pastoral resident at Ruggles Baptist Church here in Boston, Massachusetts, and he aspires to be a pastor theologian who shepherds God's people both in heart and in mind. He's passionate about taking deep theology and making it accessible to people. After his residency, he hopes to serve a local church, either in New England or overseas. And you're going to see that in this episode. We talked a lot about seminary. Why should you go to seminary? Why is seminary important? So if you're going through the same questions, or if you know anyone who might be asking themselves these same questions, make sure you like, comment, and share this episode with your friends. And also, make sure you follow The Future Pastor on Instagram and also on Substack. To learn more about this episode and my thoughts about this and other episodes, make sure you also follow me on Substack. Thank you so much, and I hope that this episode would bless your life. All right, let's get into it.
Well, I grew up in a Christian family. Mom and dad both love Jesus and still close with them to this day. And I think they did a good job of, even throughout my time, like in their house and under their care and stuff, like letting me know that I wasn't a Christian until I was. So just this like reminder of like, yeah, like when you decide that this is how you want to live your life, when you want to live for Jesus, that's when you get baptized, and that's when you're a Christian, you know? So I kind of had this, I think, healthy knowledge that, okay, I'm not there yet. I think I'd like to be, but I'm just not there, you know? And I think during middle school is kind of when I started having doubts about God, like God's existence. Can I trust the Bible? Was Jesus, these testimonies of Jesus, like, is this historically credible? Like someone rising from the dead, how could that happen? You know, those kinds of things. I ended up studying engineering, so that's kind of the way I think. That kind of bugged me for a while and was kind of what held me back from really feeling like I could really make the decision to go get baptized kind of thing and claim Christianity for myself. But long story short, I asked an older guy. He was like 4 years older than me. At this point, I was like about to go to high school. He was in college, so kind of older guy, but still like cool, relatable, you know? But I also knew that he would kind of like be able to track with me with my questions and kind of go there, if you will, where I felt like other people were kind of like, oh, just trust God. You know, I'm like, I think that's what I'm trying to figure out. Can you say any more than that, you know? But he was really helpful. His name's Tim, and he ended up baptizing me as well. And so, yeah, great relationship with Tim, and he just walked through a lot of the scriptures with me. We read a bunch of books about apologetics together. And then that kind of, it was, I want to say September 2012, when I finally decided, like, you know what, I want to get baptized. I believe this. I got to follow Jesus. Like, he's died for me, and I couldn't have done that for myself. I need to be saved from him, by him, saved to him, not from him. But yeah, so September 2012, I became a Christian and went off to UMass Amherst after that for engineering school, and graduated. Ended up getting a master's in mechanical engineering also at UMass. So I stuck around there for 6 years. During around the time my master's started, I was really troubled with doubts again in my faith. But that time I was doubting as a Christian. And so that was a lot different of an experience, because previously I was not a Christian. And the reason for that was because I didn't believe, you know, like it was a very like, I don't want to say it was just intellectual. That wasn't what it was, but I was like, I'm not sure I buy this. You know, like I'm not in it. I don't, it was largely intellectual, but I also knew like, it wasn't like it was disconnected from the rest of it, you know, but I did have a lot of like just practical, technical questions, but now I'm having those again as a Christian. And that was really disorienting for me because I didn't know that Christians could experience that. And so anyway, kind of again, long story short, getting some really good advice from a friend where it was like, look, you have all these questions. And I was a Christian, and this friend knew that, but they were like, look, you have all these questions and you're reading all this apologetic stuff, and that's helpful, but don't forget to go to God's word with your questions, and that I had grown up hearing that. I knew that was the right answer, but it hadn't clicked like that for me before. And so that's really when, I think that was like when God kind of turned the fire burners on in terms of like my growth and sanctification, just how helpful that process was of being like, okay, Lord, I have all these questions. I have these doubts. I'm not sure about what, yada, yada. But then I'd go to his word and be like, look, Lord, I'm not really sure what this is going to look like, but I'm hoping that you'll come through. I hope you're real. I think you're real. It was a really, uncomfortable, scary time in my life. It was like a 2-year phase where I was kind of going through those doubts as a believer. And, but really seeing how interconnected the Bible is and how often my questions or doubts are addressed in his word, and just seeing how holistic it was and interwoven and consistent. I was just really amazed. And that process it wasn't like an overnight light switch or something, but that process of pursuing the Lord by his word really gave me so much confidence over time. It wasn't like, my doubts are solved in a moment, but I just kind of found that as I continued to be in his word and a doubt would come up, it just kind of wouldn't stick anymore. Like, you'd be like, oh, that's a question. All right, well, keep that on the back burner. We'll see what God says about that. And, maybe a couple months later, but, oh man, look at this, kind of a random quiet time, and so that process really grew me, forced me to go to the Bible for myself between me and the Lord. And I even think sharing all that's relevant in a conversation about pastoral ministry, because I really think the Lord used that as my kind of initial training ground for walking people through the Bible, and walking people through doubts was a big part of my ministry, especially at my time at UMass. Just that process of going to the word and trying to, what does God say about whatever topic, so that's kind of how I became a Christian. At UMass, I very much got plugged into campus ministries. My local church was right off campus as well. It wasn't like a strictly campus church, but there were a lot of college students, probably 50% of the members. By my freshman year, it was more like 70% of the members were college students. I ended up being there for a decade. I know we'll probably talk more about that. By the end of my time, it was a little more 50-50 with kind of family age people, college students, just because the church grew over time and some of those college students stayed, although a lot of them moved. So anyway, that's kind of like how I came to know the Lord, how he's kind of like grown me through this process of doubt. And I got really involved in ministry and such, and ended up sticking around on staff at my church, got invited to do that after I graduated with my master's, which was kind of an unexpected turn for me. I was kind of hoping to use my 2 engineering degrees. I was really plugged in with crew. So especially in my, the beginning of undergrad, I was really involved in crew, got to lead a Bible study, got to, get involved in leadership. I think crew was really my first experience, really doing ministry, where I was invited to lead a Bible study and stuff. My freshman year, there was an upperclassman who he discipled me and a couple other guys, and that was really sweet. That was a really great experience for me, just having somebody who takes me under their wing kind of thing. But then my sophomore year, I kind of, started leading Bible study, discipling other guys. And that was kind of how I got started in being involved in a ministry. At my previous church, not my home church where I became a Christian, it was very much like I was kind of soaking stuff in, I had become a Christian, was learning a lot and excited about that. But UMass, and with crew specifically, was where I kind of got my hands dirty, if you will, hit the ground running. And at my local church, Mercy House, great church in Amherst, right off campus, got involved there, became a member there, but kind of as I became more of an upperclassman and into grad school, especially, got more involved in church and then a
Yeah.
little less involved in campus ministry. It's kind of a natural progression, I think. And it makes sense. Like campus ministry is mostly for undergrads, you know?
And then when you go from this campus ministry, you know, like activity to going to being like in the staff of your church, like
Yeah.
what did you think pastoral ministry would be like in the church, and what it actually was? What surprised you? What it didn't? What was how
Yeah,
was
man.
it?
That's a great question. So this isn't really a criticism of campus ministry, but I think it is a reality, maybe a difficulty, is it's a very narrow experience where you are interacting almost exclusively with other college students.
Right.
And that's like kind of like the age range is from whatever freshman year is to senior year. And that's like the spectrum, 4 years kind of at the most. And so that was as exciting as it sounds. You're with a bunch of young people. You're fired up for Jesus. You're doing evangelism. You're going on these trips, and it's crazy. You're going on summer mission trips, which I did a number of and loved and got a lot out of those.
Nice.
I did a number of those, like the crew calls them summer projects, and I did a couple of those. One in the Rocky Mountains, one in Yellowstone, and so those were great for me. But yeah, that's not all ministry is like having a bunch of fun with your peers and just kind of like having Bible study together, as awesome as that is. And in some ways, may we never lose that, right? Like that's the bread and butter. But I think I quickly saw, once I not just became involved at my local church, but really joining staff at my local church, because I was pretty involved, but realizing like, oh man, this isn't just lovely and fun. Like this is really difficult too, and heartbreaking, like when people fall away, or people, this to be too dramatic, but people betray might be a little too strong, but just kind of turn their back on you and that kind of thing. That's tough, man, And so I think in my first few months at Mercy House on staff, I remember feeling this sense of like, wow, a lot of ministry is not doing Bible study. That like really surprised me. Yeah, you're making a lot of kind of decisions about, okay, how do we want, what direction do we want our church moving? And how do we navigate this really difficult situation where so-and-so is in conflict with a fellow member, or this guy's not being a great husband right now, or this is a conflict, or, or like disagreements going on. There's a lot of that kind of stuff, wisdom stuff that kind of slapped me a little bit. So yeah, I think that's a really insightful question, because when I first went for it, I was like, oh, heck yeah, full-time discipling young college guys. Let's go, And again, may we never lose that, but that is not all it's about either. And when you get involved in a local church, I think that's one of the reasons to be involved in a local church, even in campus ministry, is like, man, you're rubbing shoulders with like 80-year-olds, and you just don't get that. Whatever your campus ministry is, that shit isn't happening, And to have that communal life, like real community, which is not just we're all pretty much same age doing the same thing, is just so helpful for our growth with the Lord.
That's a great answer. I would ask you, my follow-up question would be, what would you say to someone who is young and is doing campus ministry and things like that? But I think you almost answered that by plugging the local church there.
Yeah, and that was actually my role at Mercy House for my first year, was just like, Alden, we want you to do this for a year and just mentor college students. That was like basically 100% of what I did. I did an occasional Bible study with, the whole church, whatever, but that was most of my job. And that is how I navigated it. I did, because I was so involved as a student, I just had a lot of relationship with campus ministry people in my town. And so I would meet up with them, like, hey, these 4 guys asked me to disciple them. And I wouldn't ask permission about that. I'm like, yes, I will disciple you, but I would also want to be like, hey, like crew staff people, I know these guys are all like leaders in crew, but they've asked me to do this, so I'm going to do it with them. But could we collaborate? Like, is there anything you would like me to be emphasizing? Is there anything you see in them that they want to grow? Or what would be a blessing to you for me to prepare them to do whatever? You know what I mean? I tried to be relational about that, and I think that worked. And they were really amenable to that. I think that's my advice is do campus ministry. It's a really sweet, rich, unique time of life where, man, you can crash on your buddy's futon. You can stay up till 4 a.m. talking about God and like do that, like absolutely. We should, if you have an opportunity to do that, let's go, but also do at the same time in some way be plugged in meaningfully to a local church, because that is God's ultimately prescribed method for us, right? That's our long-term life. So, yeah.
So you went through all that. There was crew, there was, UMass, and then your master's degree, and then you go on staff at this church.
Mm-hmm.
But we actually met in seminary.
Yes.
Gordon-Conwell.
The most important part of my story.
Exactly. When did Gordon-Conwell, entered your life?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Mercy House is actually part of the Southern Baptist Convention, the SBC. And so I actually started at Southern Seminary because it was the cheapest seminary that I could find that also believed the Bible was inspired. So that was kind of my threshold. I'm paying out of pocket, so cheapest like Bible believing seminary. What's that? But I switched mostly because I just wanted to do classes in person. Once I realized, this is kind of a long-term thing. I'm liking ministry. I've been asked to come back as the years have gone on. I felt I wanted the option of in person, and Gordon-Conwell was at the time 2 hours from my church. Versus, Louisville is a long commute from Massachusetts. So, but I also felt the desire, Marcelo, and I know not everybody learns this way, but I definitely do. I felt a desire to be challenged by other theological perspectives. Yeah. And this is not a criticism. This is often what you get with a confessional school. I was getting a lot of Reformed Baptists who just believed and complementarian Baptists who I feel like those are in some ways the distinctives of Southern Seminary, maybe not on paper, especially the Reformed piece, but with Al Mohler as the president, there's a lot of at least Reformed-esque kind of stuff. Anyway, like Reformed Baptist complementarian people that I already believed all that, and I didn't feel like I was being challenged further into that or a whole lot. I felt like I was getting a lot of already what I say. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I kind of wanted to be pushed a little, and so part of my story is just feeling really convicted that I needed to pursue unity with the broader church, the broader body of Christ, and still believing confessionally the things I believe, but also wanting that experience of rubbing shoulders and being pushed on and pushing on other fellow Christians who think differently. And I just wanted to learn an environment like that. And Gordon-Conwell is like, this multi-denominational, pan-evangelical. It's evangelical, but it's got a number of different traditions represented there. And I wanted to be pushed on in that way. So those were the two main reasons that I switched from Southern to Gordon-Conwell. I think I was at Southern for like a year, and there was credit transfer was a nightmare, and it didn't really work because Southern does classes differently and yada, 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 whatever. And then further, I switched out of the MDiv. Once I got to Gordon-Conwell, I just didn't know what I was doing, but now I know. But I was an MDiv student, but then just felt this sense of like I just didn't really. This was also a hard decision, but I just ultimately decided I don't really want to prioritize practical classes in seminary. I want to prioritize like how to preach, how to disciple, how to evangelize. I'm doing that full time. I'm getting trained in that by really great pastors and elders and stuff in my own local church setting who know me really personally. I found myself just really desperate to learn more about the Bible, and so that was why I switched, from Southern to Gordon-Conwell, and then MDiv at Gordon-Conwell to the more technical route with a couple different master's degrees that emphasize languages and then theology, respectively. So,
yeah. And what's your degree now? Is it
so
the
my
MDiv?
degree is an MATS, Master of Arts in Theological Studies, with a major in biblical languages.
Biblical languages. And
a
you're
major.
doing both, or?
So I'm about in May, I will graduate with the Biblical Languages Masters, and then I'll, Lord willing, move forward to the THM. And I'm hoping to do that in historical theology. And in my mind, those are kind of the two pieces I wanted to get out of Gordon-Conwell, was the languages and theology. And then I'll feel like that was what I came here for.
Yeah, I hear that a lot too from different students, different people that went to seminary, and they all say the same thing. It's great to be challenged in your positions, and it's great to hear other perspectives as well.
Yeah.
It makes you, it gives you more conviction in the things that you believe in, and sometimes, there are things you can hold with an open palm that maybe in a confessional seminary, they'll teach you to hold that position with not an open palm. You're going to have to.
Sure. Yeah.
But
and that dialogue of like, if I say something, I think I can't think of an example. I mean, this has happened a lot at Gordon-Conwell. I imagine for you as well, but just, I might say something and someone's like, well, I don't know if you can say that because of this. I'm like, oh, you know what? Fair point. I'm going to modify that, but I still think, you got to, so I like being sharpened that way.
And I think that the two things that you came to Gordon-Conwell for, which is this multi-denominational, aspect of it, and also the biblical languages part, I think those two are great at Gordon-Conwell, especially the biblical languages. I think they do a great job at that, holding the standard of, great professors of the past, like Douglas Stewart, Gordon Fee, and so many others. And I think the current faculty do a great job too with the languages. They were super hard. Super hard classes. I don't know if you had the same experience as me, but man.
Oh, for sure. I feel I tell my wife this often, because I was at a certain point, I was at like a crossroads where I had done a number of MDiv classes at Gordon-Conwell, and I had already not gotten classes to transfer. And I was like, man, I don't really want to do these other classes, even at Gordon-Conwell. What's wrong with me? But I actually had a Zoom call with someone in the admin faculty of the school, and she was so helpful. Dina, I don't know if you've ever interacted with Dina.
Dina Neal?
Yeah. She's so sweet, so helpful. She was like, look, I'm in charge of the MDiv program, but it doesn't sound like you should be in the MDiv program. Like, I would love to keep you, but I don't think you're supposed to be here. So she was really the one to push me that direction. But I was at this point where I had like a lot of classes left still, but I was like, man, am I just going to waste these other classes? And I basically just decided, do it. Just like do the school that you feel called to do. I'm not here even for a degree per se. It's nice to get one. I'll tell you, I'm looking for after all these years, but like, I'm here to learn the Lord. I'm here to learn his word. And if making a certain move is going to help me do that, I should do that, whether it's feels a little defeating or not. And I'm so glad I made that decision, Marcelo. I tell my wife this often, like, I'm so glad I made that change, because not that I wouldn't have learned anything. And this is what made the switch from MDiv difficult. I knew I would learn some stuff, but limited time, thinking about my calling, thinking about what do I need, especially. Man, I feel so equipped to read the Bible in its original languages. I just feel so equipped to do that. And I can engage with commentaries and know why they're arguing something and know where they're taking the leap and where they're not. And like, I feel really confident. And that's not something I entered into seminary feeling. And so, I'm really glad I made that call.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I took some classes, some Old Testament classes with Alden, and he's awesome. So whatever he
Yeah.
says here, he can really do it. You can
Yeah.
really do what you claim
Yeah.
you can do. I think you even took like intermediate Hebrew at a certain point, right?
Yeah, I sure did.
Oh my gosh, I would never choose to do that, but
Yeah.
kudos to you.
Dude, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, actually, with we had was it Old Testament interpretation with Dr. Justin Young?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Mhm.
my I had a relationship with him because I'd had him for a number of Hebrew classes, and so I just asked if he would advise my intermediate class, and it was awesome. I had
Yeah.
a great experience with him. So
That's great. Are there any professors or classes that really, left a mark in you?
no, they're absolutely. I think, and especially, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about like what we hope to do moving forward. I'm kind of like in this place of I want to do a PhD afterward. I'd love to do some kind of academic ministry. I'm not sure what that looks like, but I love pastoral church ministry as well. So I think there's a lot of interplay that's available there,
Yeah.
but can take a little creativity. But especially, I think with that in mind, I mean, that's kind of my framework that I'm in school with is like, I'd kind of like to take this kind of thing and bring it to other people someday. I think I've taken golden nuggets away from different professors. So I think probably the professor that's been most influential on me at Gordon-Conwell has been Dr. Fairbairn, who he's Lord willing, I've talked with him about my THM thesis. We already have kind of an idea of what I want to study with him. And I just, to summarize, I feel like I came to Gordon-Conwell, honestly, it's a little embarrassing saying this, but I came to Gordon-Conwell kind of feeling this sense of like, I'm not sure an Arminian is a Christian. Like, I don't know. Like, like, and look, I'm still Reformed, but I think that seeing how multifaceted our gospel is, man, it is so much more than simply, now it's not less than this, so I disagree with Arminians, right? But I think they are real Christians, but I just had such a narrow view of what the gospel was that I couldn't tolerate even different emphases, if you will. And Arminianism and Reformed, that's not just a different emphasis. There's real difference there, and I don't want to minimize that. It's real. But I guess that's kind of where I was coming from. I was so narrow, and Dr. Fairbairn is so gifted at giving you, exposure to, these church fathers and stuff, and seeing, look, these writings are compatible with the way that we articulate our faith. But look at how many different pieces of the gospel there are here to draw from. This is way more rich than just preaching simply justification by faith alone every Sunday. You should do that some Sundays. That should happen. Mm-hmm. Like, we're Protestant, we should do that. That we believe, not just we're Protestant, we believe that's what the Bible says, right? And so yes and amen, but that's not all the gospel is. The gospel is so much more. Jesus has not only saved me from my guilt, but also my death, my shame, my corruption, my lack of wisdom, my inability, all these different things, my impurity, whatever. I mean, I'm taking a Leviticus class right now and just seeing how underappreciated even cleanliness dynamics are. So anyway, I think seeing how comprehensive union with Christ is, Dr. Fairbairn really just blew my mind. And I want to learn from him as much as I can. Whereas Dr. Young, actually, our Hebrew professor, I think what I learned from him, he's a content guy. There's no doubt about that. But I don't know if it was so much content that stuck out to me about his approach as much as how much of a shepherd he is of his students, where he's like, okay, look, you're probably going to, he says this before every class, you're probably going to forget what I say. You're not going to remember me, but I hope to equip you to navigate the literature or navigate whatever class we're talking about, so that for a lifetime, you are set up for success to know how to read this stuff with your convictions about the Lord in mind. So I just feel like he had such an aim for preparation that I've tried to adopt as I've been mentoring our interns with some theological training. I've noticed myself thinking, like, how did Dr. Young do this? Because I just feel like he's so good at, like, trying to empower his students to get them to a place where they can go do it. I think those are the two that stand out the most. Dr. Wheaton was just tough. I mean, he just had us reading so many chapters of Greek, and that was almost impossible. He was my intermediate Greek professor, and man, he kicked my butt. Well, I'll tell you what, I learned how to read the Greek New Testament, and that helped. But I almost didn't. I almost just fell under the pressure. So I think those are the three professors that stand out the most to me.
What if there is a future pastor out there listening to us, and he's like, you guys are, why go to seminary? I have my Bible, I have my Bible here. So why should this person pursue further education? Because you were somebody who was already in ministry. You were already seeing what God does through people because you were discipling people. You probably saw some people getting baptized, some people converting. You know what I mean? You could have asked this question yourself and said, why should I go to seminary and train if I'm already doing this? So I think you're the perfect person to answer this question and give advice to future pastors out there.
Yeah, man, that's a great question. And actually, nobody asked me to go to seminary when I was at Mercy House. They were pretty happy to just have me do what I was doing. Probably eventually they might have asked, but it wasn't until later that really anybody was asking anyone to go to seminary for a while there, though it was always an option. It's not that it was undervalued, I don't think, but just not required. But so all that to say, I went on my own volition. Nobody told me to do it. I didn't need it for ordination. But I am so glad I went, man. Yeah, I went because I just knew that I wanted to learn more about God's word. In some ways, that actually really is as simple as it gets. But I just, man, like, you can learn some things intuitively and on your own. And there are some really outstanding people who have done that. Charles Spurgeon is kind of the go-to, reference for that. Like, hey, he didn't go to seminary. Like, yeah, that's true, but also I don't think you're Charles Spurgeon. That's a gut feeling. I might be wrong, but I kind of doubt that you're him or like him. It takes a lot to be legendary. So yeah, you can do that. And I'm connected to a network of pastors here in Boston, and there's a handful of guys that are just really, how do I say that? I actually think they've been to seminary, but they're very much autodidactic people who just like teach themselves so much and didn't have like perhaps formal training, but they know their stuff. But it's a rare person who has the discipline to teach themselves Greek and Hebrew, Aramaic, if you really want to go hard in the paint, if you will. But that's a rare person who can do that for themselves. Before I went to seminary, I bought a Greek textbook. I still have it. And I tried teaching myself Greek and was getting somewhere with it, but I just didn't have the discipline to finish it. I think I got like 50% of the way through that textbook and learned something, but school just held me accountable to really learn this stuff. And so, yeah, the languages are just especially something that I think it's a rare person who successfully teaches themselves the languages. I mean, just having someone who's an expert in that is just so helpful. And even in theology, man, you will have a lot more blind spots. Generally speaking, if you are self-taught, you'll have more blind spots than if you have a diversity of professors who are kind of like collegially training you. That's just really helpful. At the same time, look, is seminary for everyone? Literally, no, it's not. In fact, most people who are Christian shouldn't go to seminary. It doesn't make sense. I get that. It's expensive, time consuming, but man, I think maybe my real challenge, Marcelo, to someone who would say, I don't need seminary is, sure, you may not, even if you don't need it, I think I'd even push on that. I think most people actually really do need that. Doctors do a lot of training to be doctors. Your job is more high stakes than even a doctor. So why wouldn't you get at least that much training? I don't connect with that.
Good point.
But if you have an opportunity to make a 3-year investment in your 60-year, 40-year, 30-year ministry, however long your ministry will be, why in the world wouldn't you take that? Like, go drink from the fire hose and grow. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. I've done it long, slow drip, taking 1 or 2 classes a semester. A lot of people do, whatever. Some people just do the 3-year all in. I'm only doing that, whatever. There's a lot of different creative ways, and even more so these days, it seems a lot of creative ways to do that. But yeah, if you want to teach the word as a vocation, then why in the world wouldn't you take time to learn the word really well in order to do that?
Yeah, great point. I think the advice was given. And
there you go.
If you're a future pastor listening to us, I would, if I were you,
you know what? I can reference a video that really influenced me, actually. John Piper. If I were 22 again or something like that, he has this little video. It's like a 15-minute
notes here so I can include in the description. So John Piper.
Dude, I probably listened to that. It's like 6 or 7 pieces of advice for people who are 22 thinking about going into ministry. And I probably listened to that video once a month for like a year, just like, Lord, what's my mission? What am I doing? Like, that was so formative for me. So yeah, I commend that video to anybody who's thinking about that question. I've shared it with so many people. It's super helpful. If I were 22 again. A book that was really formative for me that made me really consider going into ministry. It's not going to be an easy read, and it wasn't for me, but I had a lot of time off in between things. The 2-volume biography by Martin Lloyd Jones by Ian Murray. It's a Banner of Truth book. Dude, it's probably like a total of like 1,000 pages. It's a little unrealistic to read in like, a week or something, but that just formed me so much, seeing the gospel need in the world and Martin Lloyd Jones's willingness as a guy with great conviction to collaborate with other Christians for the sake of the gospel. The most important thing was just super formative for me. Wayne Grudem's systematic theology. I think that was my second systematic theology, but just how much he engaged with the Bible. I don't agree with him about everything. A book, 1,500 pages, you're bound to disagree with something, but just super practical, super digestible. I often go back to that. And then Pastor Theologian, I think his name is Gerald something. Resurrecting an Ancient Vision, I think it's called. It's on somewhere in that bookshelf. Just this him giving people kind of a call to, man, if you feel this desire to do church ministry and academic stuff, do both. Like, don't feel like you have to, do one or the other. The church needs that. Just felt really validating to me, as I felt a tension there and felt not really sure. So those are probably 3 that were really formative for me.
I think much of what you described from your ministry and your life as a pastor and your journey in Gordon-Conwell, as you were speaking, I had in my mind, I got to ask him if he has read that book, or if not, go read it, because it was, it was.
Oh, yeah.
But
it's
a great book.
That's cool.
It's a great book. And Wayne Grudem, systematic theology is very Baptist. So you are a Reformed Baptist guy.
That's who I am, man. Not who I am, but I am Baptist, so it works out for me. Well, you guys have Michael Horton kind of had, they published like a Presbyterian version. I mean, it's also by Zondervan. It looks identical. They definitely felt like they needed to publish a Presbyterian version of a Reformed, accessible, systematic theology. So you got that. I put on my list. I want to read his book. He's great. I love Michael Horton.
It's great. Yeah. Like for a long time, the go-to Presbyterian systematic theology was Louis Berkhoff. Systematic theology. And I think Michael Horton came to kind of, be the new Louis
Yeah.
Berkhoff, for
Yeah.
individual and adding some new things there. But both systematic theologies are great. My favorite is Louis Berkhoff because I'm old school like that. But
Have you read it, Marcelo?
the Louis Berkhoff, bro.
Yeah.
Every day, every time I'm gonna preach, I take a look at it to see what he was saying.
Oh, dude,
So,
that's awesome. Maybe I should.
yeah.
That's on my list, but it's a little low on my list. Maybe I should make it higher because
It's really good. It's really
you know what
good.
I really feel. So Berkhoff, I've heard that he kind of like is a condensation of Bavinck, and so
Correct.
really, what I'm hoping, this is a bold. Depends on what my summer class is going to look like in between degrees. But if I don't do school for the summer, my hope is to bang out the 4 volumes of Bavinck.
Bavinck, awesome.
That would be, to put that under my belt, I think would be satisfying. So
yeah,
we'll see.
That is definitely it's work, but
dude, it is.
You can get through that.
I read Calvin for I didn't have to do this. This was way more dramatic than I needed to do for a simple little assignment for like Church History 1 or Church History 2. Yeah, it was Church History 2. But I read Calvin's Institutes for a paper. That was heavy lifting, man. That was like my English translation was not super modern, and there's just so many commas and not enough periods and so much repetition. This guy wrote this before there was Microsoft editing.
For sure.
And even it was great. I mean, I loved reading Calvin. It was awesome. It was great. I recommend it, but it was difficult to push through.
Yeah. And well, going back to Berkhoff a little bit, something really good that I really like is that he gives different perspectives, So going back to
sure. Yeah.
He's always like, this is what the Roman Catholic teaches, this is what the Orthodox teaches, and this is the Reformed position. And then he kind of summarizes what Bavinck had to say.
Right.
It's really, really good.
What a Reformed!
I love these guys.
That's what they say.
These theologians that can, read Bavinck, read Calvin, and kind of, summarize for guys like me, like R.C. Sproul did that a lot and very well as well. It's just awesome, like the ability to be able to kind of popularize theology, which I think is a gift that Dr. Fairbairn really has, Because when you read a patristic text, man, it's hard to make sense of whatever is written there, So for him to be able to kind of put that into easier words and say, hey, this is what he means. I think it's a great gift. Going to kind of the future. The future of Alden as a pastor, because you're not a future pastor, you are a current pastor, right?
Sure. Sort. I'm technically not an elder yet. I'm in the elder track.
Okay.
So in terms of my ecclesiological title, I am not a pastor, elder, overseer, if you will.
Okay.
I'm an aspiring pastor, and I'm on my way there. So
how does it work? How does it work in your denomination?
Well, honestly, in my denomination, eldership is not really governed by my denomination, which is probably different in a presbytery setting, but basically a local church. So, I mean, as you know, Baptists emphasize, sometimes too much, but they at least do emphasize church autonomy. And so churches can appoint elders however they want, whoever they want. In some denominations, it'll come to a point, and this happened in the SBC, where, where do you draw the line is an important question, but where it's like, hey, the people that you're calling pastors, according to our bylaws, shouldn't be pastor, that sort of thing. And that's, at that point, a denomination could like remove a church from the denomination, but they can't tell a church what to do, if you will. So there's like that kind of distinction. So that's how autonomy manifests usually in Baptist circles. At least in Boston, it seems like the American Baptist denomination pretty seldom kicks anybody out. Maybe for better and worse sometimes. But in my local church, it's a very, I don't want to say informal process, but it's an intentional process. It's a pastoral process, but just the reality of, look, like pastors, and this is, why a podcast like this is so helpful. Pastors just need some time to think about, am I ready for this? What's this process? How do I need to grow before taking on this responsibility? What responsibilities exactly should I be taking on? And what are my gifts? And man, those are like, you don't answer that in a night. You know what I mean? Like you are you're sharing life with people in your church, and they are identifying your gifts. You're identifying your gifts. You're serving them. They're serving you. There's this interplay and this communal affirmation, but also sometimes a communal, like, hey, let's hold your horses. I don't think that guy's quite ready yet. Whatever. Not that anybody's saying I'm not ready. I'm getting a lot of affirmation. Praise God for that. But yeah, just wanting to take it slow and be patient about that kind of thing. So local churches, they can appoint elders really however they want. There usually is some kind of a formal moment where they become an elder, right? You do appoint them an elder. So it's not completely just who cares. And different churches might do it differently. But that's how we do it at our church, at Ruggles Baptist Church, where I'm serving. I might not have mentioned that yet. Just we identify a guy, and when he's ready, we appoint him. And we have a number of people that are kind of on our radar of like, these are potential elder people, but they're just not ready yet. And that's not a shame thing. That's just, and we haven't really even talked to them exactly, like that our eyes on them. I've encouraged some guys to aspire to eldership, whereas, appointing a pastor, even that doesn't actually need to go through the denomination, which you might then kind of ask rightly, what's the point of ordination then? Ordination often for Baptists is I don't want to make this sound too reductionistic, but it can be, and this isn't even necessarily a criticism, it can be just the governing body has decided that you're ready, whatever that means to you, good. You know what I mean? And so you may already be a functional senior pastor before that happens. That's possible. Usually once a church hires like a senior pastor, they do try to do the ordination thing, just because it's accountability,
What is a week like for you as someone in staff at Ruggles Baptist Church?
Ruggles Baptist Church. That's right.
And seminary student, things like that. What is a week for Alden?
Yeah, that's a good question. Every semester I try to figure that out. Big picture. So I preach once a month at our church. So I try to once per week be working on my sermon, just because I used to just kind of like try to clear my schedule on sermon weeks, but that just doesn't work so well when I have all these regular responsibilities. So I do a couple of different, meeting up with people, discipleship stuff. I try to take one study day where I'm either doing school, or even like if I have a little bit of wiggle room, just trying to grow in my knowledge of God. And so just trying to read books and take notes on books and stuff. Try to have one day where I do that. That doesn't always happen. Usually turns into like a half day or a little less. But got a couple of meetings, like staff meeting kind of things. Tuesday mornings for 3 hours is staff meeting. Usually got like a lunch meeting after that. I work from home a lot, so maybe that's like sermon prep. I teach a Sunday school at our church pretty much every Sunday, so that takes like 3-4 hours to prep. I'm mentoring our interns with some theology stuff, and that takes another 3-4 hours a week to kind of curate some notes for that. And that's kind of like a hyper Bible study is what that time is. And I try to have a seminary day once a week. I also try to take a day off.
Nice.
So you can probably tell from that so far I haven't nailed this semester what day I do what, but those are broad strokes. And then evening small groups. There's a handful of evening small groups that we do as well. whereas those other things don't usually happen in the evening. So that's kind of a rhythm. Another rhythm I'm trying to, this is kind of the academic muscle I'm trying to flex. I've started a website, and I'm trying on Sunday afternoons to write a little article or something.
Let's go. What is it? Tell us the name.
It's really introduction right now. Like, it's pretty ugly. It doesn't look pretty, but that's kind of
this podcast has 20 viewers every episode.
Okay. Well, there we go.
I mean?
We'll compete. It's my name. I can pull it up here. It's if you search it, it doesn't even come up on Google. Nobody has. I have probably 2 views. I don't even know, but it's my name, Alden Foelsche .wordpress.com. What I'm really trying to do is, when I teach a Sunday school, it's like a 30-minute kind of little teaching. I try to upload a article version of that. I'm hoping to throw in book reviews and stuff.
Oh, this is so cool.
That kind of thing. So yeah, just trying to give people some technical information that might not otherwise be accessible to them, and make it digestible. So that's part of my rhythm now, is on Sunday afternoons, just kind of write up a little something.
That's awesome. I think you are touching on different kind of disciplines, like intellectual disciplines, because when you teach, you're obviously writing, so you can also make people understand. In seminary, it's obviously more academic, so you got to worry about who you're citing and things like that. When you have an article like this, you are also writing in a different perspective, that's helpful for the theologian as well, to be connected into all those
totally
scenarios.
That's what's motivating me doing it. Just kind of flex that muscle, try it out, see what happens, get
Very
my
nice,
20
Alden.
viewers.
You're gonna get more than 20 for sure. Start a YouTube channel too, dude. Start a YouTube channel.
Maybe I should.
Yeah. And then transform those lectures into YouTube videos, and then, just do everything, all the social media things.
Boy. I'll have to get it. I am not really on social media, Marcelo. I'm on, but when I started dating my wife, her sister tried to stalk me on social media and stuff. And she was like, there is nothing on this guy. And it's not because I'm trying to be secretive. I feel like I'm actually a pretty public guy. I don't care, but I just don't really, but maybe I should. A number of people have told me that. We'll see.
Yeah, no, I think maybe you should do it. And then if it's not for you, dude, it's for the gospel. It's for Christ. Amen. You know what I mean? It's you putting the word out there. Not for your sake, but for Christ's sake, and because this is our new, the square was the place where people in the past would go to preach because people were there. Yeah, people are online nowadays. It's
true.
And you see how Gen Z is being so interested in Christianity and church history and all those kinds of things, and it is dangerous.
It's a great point.
I don't want to, shame you into doing social media, but I'm just saying, there's a noble reason for it too.
And even honestly, a number of people, I do some youth ministry stuff once a year at a camp, and I'm kind of the nerdiest Christian they know, basically. They're a bunch of high schoolers, and love them, but they don't really have anybody that is willing to go toe to toe with their questions, kind of like my friend Tim, who was willing to do that for me. And I've kind of taken that and run with it through seminary and my own study or whatever. And they every year would ask me do you have content? And I'm like, you want a sermon link? Is that, what I mean? And after the third year doing it, they were like, you should do this. I'm like, I don't know. And but basically what you're saying, I feel averse to the whole I don't want to try to get famous. I don't I see a number of Christian influencers. It seems to me, I don't know their hearts, and I'm not accusing anybody of this, but I'm looking at some of these posts, and I follow people. I'm interested in what's going on, in the Christian world. And I'm like, man, this feels like you're just kind of advertising yourself. You know what I mean? And I just want to
Yeah.
steer so far away from that. There's just so much risk of making ministry about us.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And yet, and that's true, but yet, and this is what's driven me to start this website, as feeble as it is,
Mhm.
is like, man, if people are asking, for like help learning about God, and they're like, there's nobody else I can really ask these questions to. Like, man, like I should get over myself and I should help some people. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what's motivated me, and I'm excited about it now that I'm doing it. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was a process for me of like, I want to avoid that,
Mhm.
So
Well, I'm glad you are considering it
come on,
because
let's go, Marcelo.
you would do great. Okay, so I think a final question that I
All right.
kind of have for everybody,
Okay.
because we've been here for an hour almost, so I don't
Dude,
want to take much of
that's
your
good.
time. But the question that I ask to kind of end this is basically, if I don't know how old you are, but like if you could give advice to the 20-year-old, 17-year-old Alden that
Yeah.
you know well because you were him, what would you say to that future pastor? What piece of advice would you give him? And then maybe there's a future pastor out there listening to us that could take that advice for their lives as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about this because you sent me a text to be trying to think about this. It's funny, I seldom feel like I give pastors advice. I feel like I receive a lot of advice from pastors. And to answer your question, I'm 30. So I very much feel like I'm young in ministry. Some careers, this is kind of your young to mid career, but in ministry, that really is not the case. It's just such a craft that requires wisdom, and wisdom usually doesn't come until, well, later.
Yeah.
But I guess if I were to give some advice, love people and be trained, I think are the two pieces that have struck me as really crucial for ministry, at least as far as I've been able to see in my short time in ministry. I guess I started 2020, so I've been in it for 6 years now, I guess. But yeah, it's just so easy, man. As you know, Marcelo, I'm sure you've seen this. We've all heard of this, but it's so easy to create a church policy or to do a church program or to push a vote through, and to let that feel like that we accomplished it now. Like, all right, the vote went the way that we wanted. Good. But actually, man, like, dude, God is supremely concerned not about our policy or our vote or whatever. He's concerned about people's hearts, and like there's a reason he's like, love is the supreme command. First Corinthians 13, without love, you're nothing. So much for your policy. You know what I mean? And so and just seeing, I think my church back home, especially, this is not to criticize any other church I've been a part of. I've been a part of really great churches by God's grace, but my church back home, Christ Community Church in Providence, I think they nail the priority of people. And that's something I've really taken to heart, and I'm really glad I have. I feel like, so Pastor Josh is my pastor, and as we're brainstorming things, which we often are, I'm the only other full-time staff person, and so we're often kind of just brainstorming together. What are we doing? Where are we headed? How often it comes up that, like, wait, all right, what does it mean for us that people are our priority? And then also, man, if you're a young person in ministry, being trained well is just so helpful. Like you're saying, like, you brought up the kind of the seminary critic, like, I can read my Bible. Yes, you can. But why would you be so proud as to say you don't need any help with that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we all need help with that. We're all in this together, and that's not, I'm not just talking about seminary. Like, seminary teaches you some things, but seminary does not teach you everything. Even if I did the MDiv, I've talked to a lot of people who've gotten MDivs, and they're glad they got the MDiv. And I'm not discouraging or disparaging an MDiv, but there is nothing to replace just like local church mentorship, being trained into pastoral ministry. And so and especially if you're trying to learn the ropes of ministry, man, pick someone you actually admire. Like, don't look, God puts different things on our hearts. So I don't want to make a rule here, but it seems generally more wise to be mentored by a pastor or by a church that you're like, you can get behind, like that you really believe in their vision for ministry. There's, as it turns out, a lot of different ways to do ministry. And yeah, we're all reading the Bible out here. And aren't we all Christian? Yes, we are. But I'll tell you what, not all Christians do things the same way. And it's helpful to be trained well, to be trained in a way that you feel confident about and that will give you really, that will set you up for a lifetime of wisdom to navigate pastoral ministry. So I think being trained is also a big part of why I'm doing a residency and why I'm not a senior pastor. I had options to go do ministry, and I turned those down because I wanted to grow, and I am really glad I made that decision. So yeah, I think love people and be trained are my two.
Amazing. Great. Thank you so much, Alden, for doing this, man.
Marcelo, thanks for having me, brother. It was a lot of fun.
It's not easy out there, being a pastor and, doing seminary, you're married, it's just a lot of responsibilities. And for you to take this time to be here, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, man.
My pleasure, man.